The silent observer. We've all been in that meeting, that party, that classroom. Everyone's talking, laughing, competing for attention. And then there's that one person, sitting quietly in the corner, barely saying a word. You might think they're shy, maybe even weak. But what if I told you that the quietest person in the room might actually be the most dangerous? Not dangerous in a physical sense, but dangerous in ways that are far more subtle, far more calculated, and far more effective. Think about it. While everyone else is busy performing, talking, trying to prove themselves, the quiet person is doing something entirely different. They're watching. They're listening. They're analyzing every word, every gesture, every micro-expression that crosses your face. And here's what most people don't understand: silence isn't emptiness. Silence is strategy. In psychology, there's a fascinating concept called strategic silence. It's the conscious choice to withhold speech in order to gain advantage. And the people who master this skill, they see things others miss. They understand patterns others overlook. They hold power others don't even realize exists. But why? What is it about silence that gives someone such an edge? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. The psychology of observation. Let's talk about what happens in your brain when you're quiet versus when you're talking. When you're speaking, your brain is primarily focused on one thing: output. You're formulating words, managing your tone, watching for reactions, and planning what to say next. It's like trying to drive while also reading a map, changing the radio, and texting. Your cognitive resources are split in multiple directions. But when you're silent, everything changes. Your brain shifts into observation mode. Studies in cognitive psychology show that when we stop talking, our prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for processing complex information, becomes far more active. We start picking up on details we'd normally miss. The slight hesitation before someone answers a question. The way someone's eyes dart away when a certain topic comes up. The tension in their voice that doesn't match their words. This is called active listening, but it goes deeper than that. Silent observers develop what psychologists call social acuity, an almost sixth sense for reading people and situations. Think of it like this: imagine you're at a poker table. The loudest player might be bluffing, trying to intimidate everyone with their confidence. But the quiet player? They're counting cards in their head. They're tracking betting patterns. They're calculating odds. And when they finally make their move, it's devastatingly precise. The quiet person isn't absent from the conversation. They're having a completely different conversation, one where they're gathering data, identifying weaknesses, and understanding the hidden dynamics that everyone else is too busy talking to notice. And this brings us to something even more powerful. Information is power. Here's a truth that will change how you see social dynamics: the person who knows the most holds the real power in any room. And who knows the most? Not the person doing all the talking. When you talk, you reveal. You show your hand. You expose your thoughts, your biases, your insecurities, your desires. Every word you say is information you're giving away for free. But the quiet person? They're collecting all of that information without giving anything back. There's a reason why therapists, interrogators, and master negotiators all use silence as a tool. It creates what psychologists call information asymmetry, a situation where one person knows significantly more than the other. Let me give you a real example. In boardroom negotiations, studies show that the person who speaks less during the initial phases often walks away with better deals. Why? Because while everyone else is pitching, explaining, justifying, they're learning. They're discovering what the other side really wants, what they're afraid of, what they're willing to compromise on. By the time the quiet person speaks, they have a complete map of the territory. They know exactly where to apply pressure and where to pull back. This isn't manipulation, or rather, it doesn't have to be. It's simply understanding that information flows from the talkative to the observant. And in a world where knowledge is power, the quiet person is quietly becoming the most powerful person in the room. But there's another dimension to this that's even more psychological. The unpredictability factor. Humans are pattern recognition machines. We feel safe when we can predict what someone will do or say next. It's how we navigate social situations without constant anxiety. But the quiet person breaks that pattern. And that creates something primal in us, uncertainty. Uncertainty triggers the amygdala, the part of our brain responsible for processing threats. When we can't predict someone's behavior, when we can't read their intentions, our brain automatically flags them as potentially dangerous. Not dangerous like a wild animal, but dangerous in the sense that they're an unknown variable. Think about it. The loud, outgoing person. You know exactly what they're thinking because they tell you. The passive-aggressive person. Their behavior is predictable. Even the openly aggressive person follows a pattern. But the genuinely quiet person? They're a mystery. You don't know if they're judging you. You don't know if they like you or dislike you. You don't know what they're capable of or what they're planning. And here's where it gets really interesting. This uncertainty gives the quiet person automatic authority. Studies in social psychology show that people we can't fully read are automatically perceived as more intelligent, more competent, and more worthy of respect. It's called the mystery effect. We fill in the blanks with positive attributes because our brains prefer to assign impressive qualities to things we don't understand rather than admit we simply don't know. This is why the quiet person in a meeting seems wise, even if they haven't said anything particularly profound. Their silence is interpreted as deep thinking rather than simply not having anything to say. But there's an even deeper layer to why quiet people can be formidable. Emotional intelligence and control. Let's talk about something that separates truly dangerous quiet people from just shy ones: emotional regulation. Most people are reactive. Someone says something, they respond immediately. Someone challenges them, they defend. Someone attacks, they counterattack. Their emotions are right there on the surface, controlling their actions. But people who have mastered strategic silence, they've developed something rare and powerful, the ability to feel an emotion without immediately acting on it. This is what psychologists call emotional intelligence, and specifically, emotional regulation. It's the capacity to experience anger, frustration, excitement, or fear, and still maintain composure and strategic thinking. Think about what this means in practice. While everyone else is being controlled by their emotions, getting defensive, saying things they'll regret, revealing their insecurities, the quiet person is watching all of this happen with clarity. They feel the emotions too, but they've learned to create space between feeling and action. This gives them an enormous advantage. They can choose exactly when and how to respond. They can wait for the perfect moment. They can let others exhaust themselves emotionally while they remain centered and strategic. It's like watching a chess match where one player is making moves based on how they feel in the moment, and the other is thinking 3 moves ahead regardless of their emotional state. And here's something even more powerful: this emotional control often comes from something people misunderstand completely. The inner world advantage. Here's what most people don't realize about quiet individuals: they're not empty or boring. They have incredibly rich inner worlds. While extroverted people process their thoughts externally, by talking them through with others, introverted and quiet people process internally. They think deeply before speaking. They analyze from multiple angles. They run scenarios in their minds. This creates something powerful, a well-developed internal framework for understanding the world. Psychologists have found that people who spend more time in reflection tend to have more nuanced understandings of complex situations. They see shades of gray where others see only black and white. They understand that people's motivations are layered and complicated. This depth of thinking makes them formidable in several ways. First, they're harder to manipulate. Because they've thought through issues from multiple perspectives, they can spot logical fallacies, emotional manipulation, and social pressure tactics that others fall for. Second, when they do speak, their words carry weight. They're not just reacting, they're offering carefully considered insights. This makes people listen when they finally do talk. Third, they're often more creative problem solvers. Because they're not just accepting the first solution that comes to mind or the one everyone else is agreeing with, they're finding novel approaches that others miss. But perhaps most importantly, this inner richness means they don't need external validation the way others do. And that might be the most dangerous quality of all. The independence factor. Let's talk about something that makes quiet people genuinely formidable: they don't need you. Not in a cruel way. But in a psychological sense, they're not dependent on constant social interaction, validation, or approval to feel okay about themselves. Think about how much power this gives them. Most people are socially dependent. They need to be liked. They need to fit in. They need constant reassurance that they're valued. This dependency creates vulnerability. It means they can be controlled through social acceptance or rejection. But someone who is comfortable in silence, someone who has developed a rich internal world and doesn't need constant external stimulation, they're free from that vulnerability. This is what psychologists call internal locus of control, the sense that your worth and decisions come from within rather than from external sources. People with a strong internal locus of control are statistically more resilient, more successful, and more difficult to manipulate. In practical terms, this means the quiet person can't be pressured through social tactics that work on everyone else. Peer pressure doesn't work. Being excluded doesn't bother them. Being gossiped about, they don't care. This independence makes them unpredictable and uncontrollable. And in social dynamics, the person who can't be controlled through normal social means is automatically the most powerful person in the room. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, and it's the most important one. Now, here's what separates the truly dangerous quiet person from simply a quiet person: intentionality. Not everyone who is quiet possesses these qualities we've discussed. Some people are quiet because they're genuinely shy, anxious, or simply don't have much to say. And that's perfectly fine. But the quiet person you should respect, or yes, even fear, is the one who is quiet by choice. The one who could speak but chooses not to. The one who has something to say but is waiting for the right moment. The one who is silent not out of weakness but out of strategy. This is someone who understands that silence is a tool. That observation is a weapon. That patience is a power move. And when this person finally does act, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, making a move in a negotiation, or simply revealing what they've learned, it's devastating. Because they've been playing a different game the entire time. While everyone else was competing for attention, they were gathering intelligence. While others were reacting, they were strategizing. While others were speaking to fill silence, they were listening to understand. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge." The quiet person in the room isn't judging, they're thinking. And when thought is disciplined, when observation is strategic, when silence is intentional, it becomes one of the most powerful tools available. So the next time you're in a room and you notice someone sitting quietly, watching, listening, not saying much, don't dismiss them. Don't underestimate them. Because they might be seeing things you don't. Understanding dynamics you're missing. Planning moves you can't anticipate. The quietest person in the room isn't weak. They're not invisible. They're not absent. They're the one who sees everything, knows everything, and chooses their moments carefully. And that's exactly why they might be the one you should fear most. So what have we learned today? That silence is not absence, it's presence with purpose. The quiet individual who observes, analyzes, and waits is not weak, they're playing a longer, smarter game. They understand something fundamental about human psychology: information is power, emotional control is strength, and strategic patience beats reactive speaking every single time. But here's the real takeaway: you don't have to be naturally quiet to develop these skills. You can learn to listen more than you speak. To observe before you react. To think strategically about when your voice will have the most impact. Because at the end of the day, it's not about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most aware. The most intentional. The most strategic. So next time you're in a social situation, try this: spend the first 10 minutes just listening. Watch the dynamics. Notice who's trying to dominate, who's seeking approval, who's uncomfortable. See what you learn about the room that you would have missed if you'd been talking. You might be surprised by what you discover when you choose silence as your strategy. If you found this insight into the psychology of quiet people valuable, make sure to subscribe, because next time, we're diving into another fascinating aspect of human behavior: the hidden power of people who never get angry. Thanks for watching, and remember, the most dangerous weapon in any room isn't the one making the most noise.